Hello everyone, this is Dave, and today I'm going to be painting a Christmas gnome. So I'm just starting on my square canvas that I got from the Dollar Tree with a little bit of brown paint on the outside and some white paint on the inside. What I want to do is have a gradient effect of the brown on the outside being the darkest and then on the inside being the lightest. So with a soft brush, this is a flat brush, and a soft hand, I'm not pressing down too hard. I'm just mixing the colors together on an angle just to get that gradient effect. Now you don't want to mix it too much, otherwise it's going to be all muddy. So after it dries, this is where I start drawing out in pencil my little gnome figure. So I've got his big curly hat. I wanted a nice large red hat that kind of curls down. And I also wanted him to wave. So I'm just kind of drawing out in pencil first, getting an idea of where I want everything. And now here I'm going to come in with some red paint. I'm going to use my paintbrush and I'm going to follow my outlines as best I can, really. I mean, the outlines, you don't have to follow them. You can do whatever you want as you start painting. That's pretty much what I did. I just kind of had an idea of where I wanted everything to go. And then as I started painting, I pretty much just put it where I wanted it to go. And you can totally do the same thing as well. It's just to give me an idea of the size, the curve that I wanted, and to be able to fit everything in with that inside the small canvas, actually. So I'm just kind of painting all the red right now, and then I'm going to come in with some white and going to start making the beard of my little gnome. So what I'm doing here is I'm just grabbing a whole bunch of white paint and I'm just placing it down in the area where I want the beard to be filled. And of course, I want little wispy, what do you call it? Little wispy beard like. So I'm just actually taking my paintbrush and I'm lightly flicking it right at the edge there. And that makes those little wispy whiskers, which is actually kind of the effect that I wanted. And now I'm just starting on the arm. That's his little furry white cuff. And what I do notice when I'm painting my first layer of paint is that it's fairly see-through, fairly transparent. So right now I'm not worried too much about it because I'm thinking, you know what, I'm just going to come back and do another coat. So once I finish all this off, I'm going to do a second coat on everything just to make sure that it's not see-through, because you can see with his hat a little bit there that you can see the background, and of course we don't want that. I'm just doing his little glove right now, filling that in with black paint. I think he's starting to look pretty cute right now. He's all coming together. And with his nose, I just mixed a little bit of brown paint with a little bit of white paint, and that just gave the color of his nose. So everything is dry now. I let it sit for about an hour just to make sure the background is completely dry and the paint that I just laid down, the first layer of paint, is totally dry as well. So when I come with that second coat, I can do like a nice really thick coat just to make sure that everything is solid, it's not transparent anymore, and I'm not mixing the paint from the background coming forward, etc. So I just want to make sure everything's dry before I come in and do that second coat. And here I am just filling in that second coat, making sure everything is nice and tidy, nice and smooth, and as well that it covers the entire background. Now, obviously, you can draw your gnome on there and then paint the background outside of your lines. If that makes sense, you can totally do that as well. It's just the type of background that I wanted. This was the best way to do it, let's put it that way. So here I'm adding a little bit of brown just to kind of add some depth to it, add some shadowing, especially where the hat fits onto his nose and onto his head. So I'm adding a little bit of brown, and I'm going back and forth with the dry brush, with the wet brush, with paint, without paint. You'll see my hands go off and on camera, and I'm basically mixing the paint almost, if you will, on the canvas. So you see that some of that brown does bleed into the white, and I really like that effect. It adds just a little bit of texture, it adds a little bit of depth. So with depth and texture come interest to the painting as well, right? So here I am, I'm just playing around with his beard a little bit more, adding some more white, and then I'm going to kind of come in with a dry brush at this point, and I'm going to add a little bit more of that shadowing, blend it all out with my brush, and then continue on with some of the white paint as well. And then you'll see me in a little bit, I'm going to grab some brown paint, and I'm going to add some texture and some depth into the beard as well. Just create a little bit of interest there. Highlight it on the nose, then I'm going to highlight on the glove as well after I finish kind of fixing up the paint in the glove, and there's a little bit of a highlight there, which is kind of adds again a little bit more interest to your painting. And that's what you always want. You always want people to be interested in your painting. And what I've also decided to do is give the entire gnome a black outline. Now for this, you don't have to be 100% precise. I certainly was not worried about being, every single one of my lines is the exact same thickness. And what I'm doing here is I'm taking my wet brush and I'm kind of blending in a little bit of that black that I just put down. So again, I've said it in the past, if you haven't mixed paint before, a very small amount of black goes a very, very long way. So you can always add a little bit more black, and you can never really take it away. So if you're mixing paint, or if you're painting like I am here, just a small bit on your paintbrush really, really does go a very, very long way. So again, I'm just continuing with that black outline. Every now and then I'm just wetting my brush, and then I'm bringing that black paint inwards, so I'm blending it inwards, kind of creating a little bit of a shadow, a little bit of depth as well. And again, like we said, depth does bring interest to your painting, and you always want people to be interested in your painting. So there he is, he's almost all done. I'm just finishing up my outlines and blending, and he's looking pretty good. So I think I'm going to add a little bit more highlight on the hat there, just to add a little bit more interest. And then I'm going to come in, I want it to be a snowy day. I'm just going to randomly put down a whole bunch of snowflakes. And then I decide I need him grounded onto the ground, not just floating in the air. So I'm going to make a snowy backdrop here with a little pile of snow, just so we can kind of have a little bit of grounding here. And then I'm just going to flick my paintbrush with a little bit of water and get little flecks of white paint all over, so it looks like an even more snowy day. And there he is, he's all done. And here is the entire gnome family. So here I have our little painting that we just did in the background. I've got my sock gnomes, if you will, from the Dollar Tree that I made as well. And those little clay gnomes made out of air-dried modeling clay. And I just painted those with some acrylic paint. So I have my whole entire gnome family here, as well as I have those little Christmas trees that I made. So check out my videos of my clay gnomes, of my sock gnomes, and of the Christmas tree that you see in the background. And of course, our gnome painting that we just did. Thank you so much for watching me today. I hope you enjoyed it. Bye for now.